Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're taking a look at some decks for the Weekend Lobby Tournament as usual. Weekend Lobby Tournament comes around every week and we have some decks for it. Last week's we didn't really cover because last week's meta was still pretty fresh and I hadn't really seen what I wanted to see to establish what decks I could easily recommend here. So we're going to start off with some Rune decks. Kicking us off immediately with Earthright Rune. If you've seen my previous video on this deck in particular, I'm quite a big fan of it. It does pretty well. Would I recommend it for lobby tournaments? Maybe, maybe not. It's really dependent on what you see more of in the end. If you come up against a lot of Sword, this can do okay. If you come up against a lot of Rune, not so okay. And Rune and Sword seem to be the two most popular decks, so it's a little bit of a mixed bag on that one. So it's really going to depend, but overall, I do quite like Earth Rune, and it does tickle that itch if you ever want to run it. Then, coming in secondary for Rune here, I have more of a hybrid build. So these decks are fairly popular at the moment. There are a few different ways you can run these. You can run these with a few less Earthrights. You can drop things like Ward and potentially even Prodigy and kind of just run everything else here, except for the, maybe not even this. Maybe not even the Legendary. We just run the Normans. And then you have basically a straight spell boost deck with like an Earthright, you know, back end. And that's still pretty close to this. This just runs a couple more Earthright cards, so you can get away with running the Lathium, which seems to be a pretty popular deck, honestly. I think this variant does pretty well on ladder overall, and I think could perform pretty well in a potential lobby tournament scenario. So I wanted to recommend this one instead of just straight spell boost rune. But I also didn't want to include just a straight spell boost rune, since really all you're doing is dropping like 3 cards for any more spells that you want, pretty much. So it's not really that much more of an advantage either way. But I haven't really tested this deck too much myself, but it does look like it has a fair bit of success. Then we'll go on to some Wardhaven. You can run Amulet Haven. I haven't really included that here, but this Wardhaven seems to be the more prevalent deck, at least doing well in the current meta from what I've seen around. Haven just isn't that popular right now, I think because some of the other decks do really well into it, like Rune. Rune just does so well into this deck that it's really a pain to deal with, so not much you can do when you're playing this against Rune. But it does handle things like the Sword matchup pretty well. As long as you can land those early wards, you can pretty much control to the late game, and that's where you can kind of dominate Sword players. So overall, this deck's pretty solid. You will notice that nearly all these decks are pretty legendary heavy. Unfortunately, there aren't really many good budget options right now, at least not ones that I'm super familiar with that could be really good. So it's kind of just recommending what is currently pretty good. And here is our first of 2 mid-sword variants. Mid-sword has 2 variants that I've been messing around with. This one I've had a lot of success with in the last 2 days. It does really well. It's got a little bit stronger early game here with these few cards, and then quite decent late game. Without running like Geno and other top end cards, and running 3 Hounds instead. It's fun. I really enjoy it. This deck's actually served me pretty well. It let me stick in Sapphire for quite a while over the course of the last day or so, and I was pretty happy with that. And then the other one is one that's been propping up a little bit more lately that I noticed in the last day or two as well while I've been playing my sword variant. This sword variant's a little more controlling on the top end with double Geno and Olivia, but a little less heavy on the bottom end without, what's it called, Quick Blader. So this one's a little less aggressive in the early stage, a little more aggressive in the later stage for the deck. So this variant's definitely another good option. I recommend checking either one out. They're basically similar in cost, since the cards that are changing really aren't all that impactful, and if you're already a big sword player, this is definitely a good option. Unfortunately, basically mid-sword's the only super viable sword deck right now. From what I've seen, you can lean towards more mid-control and probably do okay, but yeah, aggro sword just doesn't really hit that hard right now. Coming in next, we have Control Abyss. Control Abyss is a deck that's been doing very well on ladder right now, performing well above where I would like to put it. This is probably the 3rd best deck, right next to like aggro and control. I would say those 2 decks together make up kind of this tier of decks, where they're like the 3rd best deck outside of Sword and Rune currently that we're seeing. And honestly, this deck is pretty good. I've been enjoying playing it a little bit so far. I'm still trying to get the hang of how I should control top end to try and win me games. And early game, you are losing a lot of value on being able to control super early. You've only really got a couple of good control options early, but it does the job, and it gets the job done if you're looking for a decent Control Abyss list. I do have an aggro abyss here. We will check that out next before we get to the end here. We may as well keep these all together. So aggro abyss, this one's way more aggressive, playing way more early cards and playing way more value. This is a very similar list to the previous aggro abyss that I have played, and I think it was a video on my channel from memory. I'm pretty sure I covered this deck. This runs the pretty standard Extella stuff and low-end cards that give you a lot of value and get you a lot of damage in with things like Rage of Serpents and Lesser Mummies and stuff. It just dumps a lot of the control stuff for a lot more aggressive plays and does a pretty good job of it, honestly. So if you are looking for a more aggressive Abyssalisk, I'd go something more like this. Otherwise, getting back to our regularly scheduled stuff here, we have Artifact Portal, coming in as one of the 2 portal variants for the current meta. Artifact Recharge, pretty standard. Flight of Icarus, this lets you kind of just get value out of the rushes, which does a pretty good job along with Last Draw a card. It really is like your draw engine card, so you don't run out of steam. Then, of course, you got your Love Struck Puppets and then all your other generators for gears, which really, one Love Struck Puppet just for that extra little bit of early value, and then all your gear generators, and of course, Ember of Darkness gives you that can't be destroyed by abilities, which is really good into the Control Abyss matchup. Not so good into most other things, but definitely good there. Otherwise, you're really just looking to generate early gears, take some early board control, and then pretty much just hoping that you can go stuff like Absolute, Karala, Doomright, basically consistently, and then kind of hit them with the Orcust and the Ralamirs to kind of finish them off, or the Odins to finish them off, and really get your value there. So this list is pretty okay. Does a pretty good job, honestly, and is really nice. So should be a really interesting one if you want to check that out. It's also, I want to say, on the cheaper side of decks, considering it's 9 legendaries versus like 12 plus that Alogic's running now, so a little bit on the cheaper side. Then we get into probably one of the cheaper decks now that I think about it. Puppet Portal. Puppet Portal, also a really solid option. Much more heavy, obviously, on Puppet stuff, basically running all of your early Puppet generation and some other pretty decent cards for more aggressive plays, and then pivoting into your more control-y and endgame cards in your Orcus and Wise. Actually, looking at this, yeah, this is only a 8 legendary build, sorry. Sorry, my mistake, I missed the Udi. Udi actually bumps this up to higher than Artifact Portal, so kind of brutal, not gonna lie. All these legendary decks, it's kind of bad, but legendaries are just so powerful. Like, you get away without Udi. Honestly, this is one of the ones that I would drop. If I was going to drop a card, drop Udi. Run something else if you can't afford it. But Puppet Portal does a pretty decent job. I run a little bit of this on ladder so far, and it's definitely okay. I've had pretty good success with it, and it does exactly what I want. The one's Y is just enough. I actually have a Puppet Portal video probably coming out relatively soon. Probably the next day or two after this video. So, oh, maybe I drop it the same day. We'll see. We'll see if I drop this along with this video before everything goes off. But Puppet Portal does a really nice job. It's quite fun. Pretty solid deck. Can recommend it. Then we have a deck that I'm not a big fan of, but is about the only viable Roach deck. Basically the only viable Forest deck at this point. Roach Forest, really the only one with enough like oomph to really get you there, but honestly I feel like Forest is falling off quite a bit this expansion. I've definitely seen way less Forest than any other craft in the current meta, and it's definitely one of the hardest decks to see in the meta, as it just doesn't seem to have enough impact in laddering, which is going to be very similar to your lobby tournaments, and I just don't know if it'll get you there unless you're like a die-hard Roach player. But again, I'm not a big Roach fan. I just wanted to make sure I include a Forest deck for all my Forest lovers out there, because some of you guys need a deck to play, and honestly, Forest is still probably the cheapest deck you could possibly play at this point. So hopefully you guys can enjoy this deck, and let me know if you do alright with it, because I don't have much faith in Forest craft as a craft at the moment. Then we move on to our last couple of decks, Ramp and Aggro Dragons. We did already check out Aggro Abyss. Ramp Dragon, a pretty standard, a very standard early core. We are running White Frost and we are running Firestorm. Very nice. The Megaloorcas are kind of your big swarm cards now, so they do a really nice job. Seasoned Merman, Megaloorca, and Neptune all generate really good value, especially after Neptune's been played. Neptune getting you that extra heal when you get the crest, really valuable. Otherwise, you're just dumping things like Phoenix, Twilights, and Genesises on your opponent, along with things like Odin and Olivia's to just kind of win the game. That's really it. It's big dragon deck. It does big dragon things. And actually, looking at the amount of legendaries in it, one of the more affordable legendary decks, maybe, I guess not. It's okay. It's still like 10 legendaries, 11 legendaries. Yeah, maybe not great. It's just kind of like that, unfortunately. All these decks kind of have that one problem where legendaries have just become so good that half of your deck is legendaries. It's really a little sad, you know? And then last but not least, we have a good old Aggro Dragon. Not too much changed here. We have included the Megaloorca and the Grimnir's stuff, which is pretty decent. And of course the Odins. This variant isn't running the new Amulet. I think the new Amulet is fine, but maybe it's a little slow, honestly, to get going. So this one focuses more on just beating your opponent down and runs things like Draconic Berserker to really deal with those wider boards that some crafts can put out, along with, of course, the Megaloorca stuff to help you deal with those as well. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. That's pretty much every deck here. You should find nearly every deck listed in the description below. I'm going to make sure I try and include every deck listed in the description below, but as of this video's recording, it is now 9:07 p.m, which the lobby tournament started at 9, so I'm a little bit behind. Unfortunately, it was my birthday, so I was a little bit busy, preoccupied with some family and other things, so didn't manage to get this video out quite as early as I would have liked, but here we are. So that pretty much covers every craft. It covers almost all the major decks that are in the format currently, with some variable exceptions. There are like hybrid Haven decks that are fairly okay, and probably could get away with like an aggro sword variant if you really pushed it, but honestly, I think this roundup pretty much covers everything I want to cover. It's a nice solid roundup of about 12 decks, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it. So until next time, guys, I'll see you in the next one.